It is January 19th, 2024, 4:44. Just trying out some different technology. Apologize if you tried to get in on the other link and weren't able to do so. Working on trying to find the best solution that allows everyone to interact with us and do you have a better viewing experience as this version hasn't worked out as much as we hope. So anyways, thanks very much for listening today. Going to give you an update on what happened this week, what we saw, what's going on as I mentioned last week, there was Davos coming up these first couple days of the week. So a few interesting things come out of that. They had kind of 4 key things that they felt you needed to work on. One of them was mostly a focus on technology and AI, and Sam Altman spoke, the ChatGPT founder, just about how the individuals, the humans, continue to be a major part in how this is going to play out. So that was interesting. We had Milei, the new leader from Argentina, come out and speak as well. His speech, if you haven't watched it, I think is quite interesting, quite dynamic. I'd never seen him speak in as much detail, so talked a lot about just the current system. He talked a lot about Argentina was a leader of the current system that we have, and then it changed over the years, and there's a lot of potential still in the world for growth, but we need to focus on entrepreneurs, business people, and seeing where the opportunities are. I thought it was quite interesting, so worthwhile to read. But I want to give you an update on the markets as well, what's happened. So let's jump into the presentation. Let me get these slides up here, and I can give you an update on what I saw happening this week. All right, perfect. So it continues to be lots of attention towards what's going on with inflation. So if we look at this chart, this is U.S. core PCE inflation. So it's good to kind of look at a longer term trend, direction, things like that. This is U.S. PCE, so six-month annualized trend. The reason that it looks more interesting, I guess, in this way is because then you can look back to 2020 and see what that looked like as well, and the jumps and peaks that we saw. Similar, we're coming down the other side of this very quickly as well. As you can probably notice, that number is below 2%. And so if you have these conversations with the people, they talk about the central banks of the world have this 2% target for CPI, but core PCE is something to look at and think about where and how quickly that's come down to where we are today. On the Canadian side, so PCI, so this is a look at PCI, CPI, CPI ex shelter, and then obviously shelter has gone up because rates have gone up. So this is our view, National Bank's view, given our recession scenario for the Canadian economy in H1 of 2024, we expect US dollar to appreciate versus Canadian dollar to 145 in the coming months. And so this is, I think, a worthwhile view to consider. If you need US dollars, probably a good time to buy it. If you have US dollars, good time to hold and potentially look to convert some of that money back to Canadian at a later date when you need to do so. Always interesting. Get lots of questions about foreign exchange from clients. This is a great chart that just talks about, if we go to the bottom of this chart, so this would be exchange versus Canadian dollar. So if you plan to head to Europe or to the UK, this is a good way to look at it. And ultimately, in both backdrops here, you could argue as to why, but I do believe that Europe and the UK are in a recession a little bit ahead of North America right now. So expectation is in the first half of this year that Canadian dollar actually goes up versus euro and the pound. So interesting to watch that. If you plan to travel there, worthwhile to think about that. Property taxes for the largest jurisdictions in Canada, over 500,000. So there's been a bit of buzz in the TV just about news about what's happening with Toronto property taxes. Their prices are going to be going up from here, which makes sense because they're one of the lowest in Canada. And so if you look at Ottawa on this benchmark, we're a little bit over half. So we're in I'd say, a reasonable shape. And speaking with others that have lived in other parts of the country, I think our taxes are quite high, but not necessarily to other parts of Canada. So single family building permits. So as I talk to individual builders around the city, they've decided to put plans on hold in certain areas. The bigger builders continue to drive on, but certainly when you're looking at the marginal builder, they've decided to wait if they can. And so we've seen single family building permits go to one of its lowest levels in a very long time. And just to bookend it, I didn't mention on the outset, we do have a new research provider, ISI Evercore. Super interesting stuff out of there, great charts. I'll be adding those to the dailies and sometimes on the weeklies, depending what I pull out this week. Great US research on stock and economics. They have models, certainly interesting to look at. But if we bookended here, this is I thought quite an interesting chart just to think about what's gone on in the United States. So the U.S. has had quite limited immigration, and so we had something in the neighborhood of 45,000 people, registered immigrants into the United States in 2023 versus the 700,000 or so in Canada. And so you've had multi-unit building, apartment building, that has gone on in the United States the last couple of years, and you're going to get something in the neighborhood, they say, of a 70% surge in apartment deliveries in 2024. This is very fast pace. Likelihood that this will, potentially make that market a little bit soft. As interest rates start to fall, this could be quite interesting. And I think likely what the U.S. Central Bank does, which is cut rates and stimulate, similar to what I expect to happen in Canada. I think I expect Canadian Central Bank to be likely more aggressive than the U.S., but we'll see how the economies deteriorate from here. So that's it on the charts for this week. So when I look at how we finished out the week here, the TSX was up for the day. Dow, Nasdaq, looks like everything across the board was up on this backdrop. When I take a look at that, we had gold slightly higher, oil slightly higher, and certainly an interesting week. Generally, the markets were a little bit softer, but lots of the attention was focused on what was going on with Davos. A lot of CEOs, executives spending their time there. I'd expect next week we would get more attention around what's going on with the economic numbers, CPI, PPI. We get both the Bank of Canada and the Fed coming out with their results in the next 2 weeks, so this Wednesday and next Wednesday. And then, as I mentioned, we're having the annual outlook, so working on putting that together. So that's going to be on January 31st, working on finalizing the details, and the invitation will go out shortly around that. Going to have a couple guests as well to add to that. I've mentioned our new associates joined the team, Eva. So Eva started this week, and I'd expect her to be on this call next week as well, so everyone can say hello and see her. And she'll be reaching out if you need anything. If you hear from her, please respond. She'd be just checking in to maybe book meetings or ask some questions and reach out. So I'm certainly excited for that, and there'll be more details on the event. I hope everyone has a great weekend, and look forward to seeing everyone again soon. Thanks very much. Take care.